Hello, and welcome back to Voices of the Great War. I'm Liz Watson. Today we're going to be reading 2 more letters from the Eckert family. The first letter that we're going to be reading is from Aunt Margaret, and it is written to Odo. And here is that letter. It's dated October 30th, 1918. And Aunt Margaret's letter reads, Dear Odo, I was glad to hear that you and George arrived safe, and that you were on the same ship, and that you arrived in the same place. I suppose you have seen lots, and some experiences you will never forget. You must tell us all about them when you get back. I know that George is at a different camp or place now. Can you see each other, or must you only write to one another? We had a letter from Carl. He said that he is well, and that he had a letter from you that arrived safe from overseas. Did you hear from him? There's quite a change here since you left. The saloons and all amusement places are closed, and so are the churches, which makes it very quiet on Sundays. Last Thursday they closed the schools on account of the influenza, or flu as they call it, for there's so many people sick, and there are just not enough doctors or nurses to take care of everyone now. I think the weather has a great deal to do with it. First, the extreme heat in August, which you experienced at Camp Lee, and the cold weather in September. The paper stated that it was the hottest in August and the coldest in September in 47 years. And we have nothing but fog now and very little sunshine and lots of rain. But I think as soon as it gets dry and cold, the epidemic will soon be overcome. So for now, we are all well, and so are your folks at home. I will close now in hopes that this letter will find you in good health and that you will write soon, for we are all anxious to hear from you. With best wishes for the coming holidays, your Aunt Margaret. So in Aunt Margaret's letter, we see that the influenza epidemic in 1918 is becoming, it's kind of reaching full force. Now we're starting to close schools, churches, places of amusement. And one thing that really helped the influenza epidemic become prolific basically was the war. We had all the soldiers in very close quarters, the camps, the trenches. Especially in the trenches, the hygiene obviously was not great. So it was the perfect storm for this pandemic to just kind of run rampant. And not only did we have the closures like we did for COVID of the schools and the churches and places of amusement, we also had, they wore masks just like we did for COVID as well. And for the people who weren't wearing masks, they were actually called mask slackers. So during the Great War, World War I, you didn't want to be a slacker. And it wasn't only for the masks, it was also for like food, for example. In one of the prior episodes, I talked about the rationing. And no, there wasn't a law about rationing, but everybody signed these food pledges, which said you were only going to eat meat on a certain day, and you were only going to use so much sugar, for example. And you didn't want to be a slacker, which meant, you wanted to adhere to that food pledge, and you wanted to make sure you wore your mask because you wanted to do your bit. So that was very big back at that time, as you didn't want to be labeled a slacker for anything. So that was one way that they encouraged people to adhere to the different rules that they were setting up to help to help slow down the spread of the influenza at the time. So let's go ahead and read another letter. We're going to read another aunt has sent Odo a letter. This is Aunt Catherine. So we're going to read Aunt Catherine's letter next, and her letter is actually dated November 11th. So this is a very important date, because November 11th was the date of the ceasefire. So now we know the fighting is over. So now we're going to read Aunt Catherine's letter to Odo. So, Dear Odo, just heard the good news of war being over at 1:30 p.m. All the whistles and bells are ringing. It seems too good to be true, as we are never certain about what we read in the papers. But as you predicted in your letter to your home, it surely must be so. And you might know that everybody is glad that it's over. Only yesterday I received a letter I had sent to you boys at Camp Lee on the 19th of August. I did not have the correct address and sent it too late. It back of it, so it was returned, although it took a lot of time. Now we are wondering how soon you will be getting back home and wanted to send your Christmas box, but were told we could not unless the soldier boy sent us the labels from over there. We hope you are aware of it and are sending them, as the limit is November 20th. We heard from Carl September 22nd, a year to the day since he left home. He said he is finally as strong as ever and wants to try and get a furlough in December or January and go to Paris or Versailles. He wants to see something before he gets back home. I suppose you and George will want to do the same. It would be nice if you will all meet up over there somewhere. Aunt Tanya had a letter from Mrs. Fryer-Coffer of Philadelphia. Her son Stanley is in Dublin, Ireland at present, and Elizabeth Hoffman's husband, Mr. Harold Bensel, has just been made ensign and is home on furlough. He expects to be sent to Russia soon, but now that the war is over, maybe that situation will change. While writing this, Anita returns home and brings a letter received from George, dated October 16th, in which he states that he had not heard from home nor from you and Carl, but has written you both also and asked to send you his latest address, which is as follows. Private George A. Eckert, Division Supply Company, 2nd Depot Division, APO 762 American EF. He writes he is well and getting stouter and weighs 181 pounds. We are writing to you all weekly. Changing your addresses has likely delayed them some, but we hope that you will finally receive all the letters. Trusting that you are in good health, and keep writing home, and Carl and George also. With best wishes, Aunt Catherine. So it was nice that Aunt Catherine was able to write on the day of the ceasefire, November 11th. The ceasefire actually took place over in France, November 11th at 11 a.m. So it was, the way it was described, or the way it has been described, is that you heard guns and artillery firing, and then at that very moment that 11 a.m. strikes, it's eerily quiet. There's not a sound. So for 4.5 years over in France and Belgium, you heard nothing but guns and artillery, and then all of a sudden it's quiet. It had to be a very strange sensation, almost this, what do we do now? We spent the last 4.5 years at war, and now what's next? And it was supposed to be the war to end all wars. Unfortunately, we know that it was not. It was only the first, or the initiation really of a very bloody 100 years, if you think about World War I and then World War II, and then we had Korea and Vietnam, in Afghanistan. So we have seen the war to end all wars, unfortunately, was not that, and it really only started, unfortunately kind of paved the way for different methods of warfare until we are here today. So, but November 11th, at least back then for them, was a day that we continue to remember today as Veterans Day. So that is the last letter for today. And I guess until next time, I am Liz Watson, and this is Voices of the Great War.